to the Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham. Now picture this. You're on Mackinac Island. You're having a grand old time at the Grand Hotel, and then boom, a mystery is afoot. Someone has been murdered during the Mackinac Policy Conference, and treachery begins. And if you're familiar with Mackinac Island, you're not leaving unless it's by boat, ferry, or I guess in this particular case, swimming with the fishies. That's what's happening in a new book called The Grand Secret. The book follows a scheme, betrayal, and of course, a murder. The Grand Secret is the work of author Ed McKenna. The Downriver native have been writing for more than 20 years, and the father of two is also a Michigan State Spartan. Ed joins me now to talk a little bit more about his new book, The Grand Secret. Ed, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you, Tia. Great to be here.
Of course. The Grand Secret is out now. So what about Mackinac Island made you think, you know what, I'll write a murder mystery about the island?
It's one of the more familiar places on the entire state of Michigan, where everyone, in fact, even throughout the country or the world, has heard about the world's longest front porch. So it's an icon in Michigan. And I thought, what if, some big murder event took place there? And then I thought, well, what kind of a event would you want to, lead up to that? And we have the Mackinac Policy Conference, which may be arguably the most important event pulling people together throughout the state to really move, commerce and cleaner living and so forth forward. And so that kind of was the birth of that.
I mean, just not any conference, but some of the biggest movers and shakers of the state of Michigan are gathered in this one space on the island. So it really is intriguing to think, this is something that is interesting that could happen. It's something as large as the Mackinac Policy Conference. But what about the space makes for a great murder mystery? As you're writing and you're going through, what about it really excited you when you were writing in terms of the island itself and trying to turn it into a mystery?
So many things. Number one, it has a deep history. Personally, I have a lot of connections. I met my wife up on Mackinac Island. My daughter's birthday is July 10th, the date that the Grand Hotel opened. Jane Seymour's last name is McKenna, which is my name, of course.
Yeah.
And I once served as a tour guide on Mackinac Island. So I have a lot of close personal connections with the island.
You can say that again. I mean, July 10th is my niece's birthday as well. So that's just
happy
something,
birthday.
Happy birthday to your daughter as well. But just going through the book and thinking about some of the big major plot points of the book, what are a few events that take place throughout the book that folks would be interested in knowing?
Yeah. First of all, the murder occurs up at the Cupola Bar. That's, the main viewpoint overlooking the Straits of Mackinac.
So beautiful.
And the automotive consultant, in fact, he's one of the premier auto consultants in the industry, walks up there late in the evening, hoping to look at the stars, and all of a sudden he sees these two sinewy figures pummeling this lifeless body. And he turns, the floor creaks, and they realize they've got a witness. So they're after him. Ultimately, he becomes framed for the thing. So he's got the bad guys after him, the police are after him. And him and his wife, they need to get off the island and figure out who did this, why, and how are they going to get their life back.
I mean, and getting off of that island is not easy if you don't have a way across the water. But what about it being at the Mackinac Policy Conference that particular weekend, and the book creates a higher stakes or makes it a little bit more of a I guess you can say, interesting murder?
Because there's a lot involved, and it kind of, when they continued their research and digging deeper, they realized there are ties with the UAW. And I sprinkle a lot of the history of the significance of the creation of the UAW and why it was so important that they become an entity to help out the workers. But at the same time, they uncover this big conspiracy that's going on that's leading to hundreds of retired UAW workers, their lives and so forth are involved. So the policy conference really kind of is the climactic aspect where it brings it all together. And there's some big surprises sprinkled along the way, and one big one at the very end that's going to take your breath away.
which I love about murder mysteries. So you're from Downriver. You have 2 daughters. We just found out one was born July 10th. Just talk about being a working writer and just, your life as being a writer for 20 years. What has it been like for you, especially when you get to this point in your career?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I have a real career, a real job. And so when you're trying to commit to yourself, maybe an hour a day to find time to write, it's looking at the time constraints, whether it be before breakfast, late in the evening, at lunchtime, what have you, so that you're true to yourself and your commitments and taking that process through all the way and everything and all the obstacles that come into play in that regard.
I mean, yeah, I could only imagine. Once again, like I said, you're a father of 2. You have a full-time career. You're a husband. You're doing all the things as a dad, but, just as a man as well, trying to make sure that you're okay, but then also trying to find a way to pursue your passion, which is writing. So in 2015, you won the Write Michigan Short Story Contest, which launched your career as an author. Talk about the pivotal year that 2015 was for you in terms of becoming a professional author. Yeah,
I wrote this short story, and out of 750 entrants, I ended up winning the thing. And so that made me really believe in myself, and I expanded that into a full-length novel that is out there. And then I also went to the New York Thriller Fest that year and was able to, meet up with local agents out there and pitch to them, and 6 of them did ask for the entire manuscript. But in the writer's world, everyone's looking for a platform that, you have an audience or you're maybe famous, and obviously I'm none of that. So it's really been put upon my shoulders if I want to see this thing live and breathe to get out there and make it happen. And the feedback has been really amazing, and so I know I have something here, and I'm not ready to give up on it.
Which I love so much. So did you start writing as a passion project and it kind of turned into a career for you? Or, did you ever see yourself becoming an author in the way that you are today?
Never.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I remember Joe Falls, the newspaper columnist, had put an article mentioning a book, and I think it was maybe his private trainer that wrote this book about, and the similarities were they believed the Art Van family, the van that owned that store. And I went and read the book, and when I was done with it, I thought, I think I could do just as good, if not better than this. So I just kind of dove in and went head first, and then realized, there's a big process if you want to make it really good, and I had to follow that through.
Yeah, and as well, I loved reading about you is that you are a part of writers groups, so the South Lyon Writers Group and the Capital City Writers Group. Can you talk about what it's been like being a part of like-minded folks who are interested in seeing your work flourish?
Yeah, being part of a writers group, you're with like-minded people. Some of them have the same goals where they want to, have commercial success, but a lot of people, they just want to be in that world and talk with like-minded people. So we get feedback from each other. We're able to critique each other's work, and it's kind of a private, personal community where we can be honest with each other and yet gentle at the same time, because when you're exposing your work, your personal writings with someone, sometimes you can take it to heart, and, So that is one aspect of the writers groups. But, when you put it out there for the world to see, that is a whole other scary object. It's just like jumping off the cliff, and you're putting yourself out there for criticism and everything that goes with that. And so it's quite rewarding when you do start getting positive feedback from that.
Yes. And if you're listening to the Metro right now, we're talking about The Grand Secret, a new book about a murder mystery on Mackinac Island. And my guest is author Ed McKenna. Now, Ed, was it hard for you finding an agent or a publisher or someone to really push this book?
Extremely.
Yeah, talk about it.
As I mentioned, everyone's looking for a platform. They're looking for something that they can basically take and run with it because it's already got some legs. And I had none of that. And after exhausting that to what I felt, as far as I could, that's when I went to the Amazon distribution channel. Mm-hmm. And then also if a bookstore is going to sell it, you go through Ingram. So I have it published through both of those entities.
Yeah. And what would be the advice you would give someone who is just like starting out or trying to find their footing and publish a book?
Yeah. Always be learning, read about writing from other writers. Stephen King has a memoir that talks about writing, and become part of a writer's group, because that's where you start to get more, kind of like, the more brains that you put together, you're personally growing as a result of that, and you're helping each other, and you have a support base that when things start getting frustrating, these people can help you, or maybe talk about how to get around a hurdle to get to the next level. So always be learning, and you're only going to get as far until you actually give up on it. So like anything successful, don't give up. And it is definitely a group sport, let's put it, or a team sport, because writing, you do not just do it on your own. You need a lot of people and a lot of conversations to really get to the next level.
And I love that, Ed, because that's one of the first times I think I've heard an author say that they needed a community, or they needed to have folks around them. You can't just write the book alone, which is something that I don't think a lot of us think about when we think about authors, is that you have a support system with you as you're writing the book or a manuscript or whatever it may be. Could you just go into detail a little bit more about the importance of having a community, especially when you're starting out as an author?
Yeah, like, when your initial getting to know each other, that's part of it. And then when you start exposing your writing is another part of it. And when you have people that maybe you value their opinion even more than others, or maybe they have a master's in fine arts where they've focused on writing, if you feel comfortable and you develop the relationship with them, you can go to them and ask them to really review your work extensively. And, I felt I had a couple of people do that for me. Barbara Smith, Miss Mania, who was also one of my daughter's teachers. And I shared them a small stipend just as a small gesture to show my appreciation, but I valued their opinion very much. And my daughter and my daughters and my wife are very voracious readers, and I valued their opinions. And there were times there were very heated discussions because I didn't agree with it. But as women readers, I also took note that they had something to share, and so I did alter things based on their feedback. So I felt that was very important as well.
Exactly. And you did mention, we're getting back to the book quickly, but you did mention history about the UAW and the famous Battle of the Overpass. Now, what is that story about for folks who may not know the history of the Battle of the Overpass?
Yeah, Henry Ford, the founder, was very much against having his company unionized, I think, as any business person would be against that. However, he took strong-arm steps to try and prevent that. And there's the famous story of the UAW, Walter Reuther, Richard Frankenstein were up on the bridge, it goes over to the Rouge plant, and they happened to be encountered Henry Ford's heavy guys, if you will, heavy men, strong arms, and they were literally punching Frankenstein and Walter Reuther. However, the photographers happened to be there. They caught the blows on camera, the blood on camera, and it really caught the sentiment of the public as a result of that. So when you go into the UAW halls throughout the state, you'll see pictures of that famous time, or even newspaper articles hanging in their halls. So it's very much part of their history, and it really launched them into the next level and getting public support. So that was a big part of that.
I love learning history. That was a new fact. I had no idea about that. Battle of the Over. I had no idea about that. So thank you so much. And why did you think it was so important to include those type of details and facts within the book?
I don't want to give away too much about the UAW, where it's going to, be the spoiler about the book. Yeah. But I wanted to show a side of them that was very much needed at that time in the manufacturing industry, and particularly in the automotive industry. And so I felt that was important to bring that into the play.
Well, that's why you need to read The Grand Secret so you can get down to the facts of what's going on with the UAW. But, just thinking about going forward and some of the things that you would like to see, there's one thing that I've been so interested in because we've seen it a lot, especially with Apple TV. They've been buying up a lot of books, a lot of authors' manuscripts to adapt them to television. Has it ever been something in your mind? Seeing your book being adapted to a television show?
It very much is.
Nice.
I want to convert this into a screenplay, and I've just recently downloaded Final Draft, which is the platform that's most used throughout the industry. So I still have to go through the process of learning how to do that. So again, it's another obstacle, but something I'm going to be pursuing because I feel that the story would really play out well on the silver screen.
Just thinking about the way that it's laid out and the way that the book reads, I was thinking the same thing. That's why I asked that question. I said, this seems like this would be a really good watch for someone who's interested in just watching a really good murder mystery. That could possibly also have a little bit of comedy thrown in there as well. But what other projects are you working on right now?
Well, the interesting thing is this was actually the first book I wrote, but then the query, and then a third one, which is not published yet. It actually, the person who's kind of the bad person, let's put it that way, the simplicity, they carry through on all three of the books. So the query is already published and out there, and then the third one is unpublished because I'm focusing on really getting this one out into the marketplace. So kind of one thing at a time here.
But it's a murder mystery series, it seems to be.
More or less, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
That's really, really cool to think about. And what's your final pitch before we let you go to anyone who likes murder mysteries or who may be looking for a new genre to get into, especially if they want to read The Grand Secret?
Yeah, I think the big thing is check out the first 4 pages, and if that doesn't pull you in, then this book is not for you. I try and follow the style of James Patterson, and personally, if I read a book, I need to get hooked right away or I'm not giving it the time. And that's what I try and model my writing. So if I give it the first 4 pages, give that a try. I'm really championing the beauty of Michigan as a place to visit, as a place to vacation, as a place to work, as a place to start a company, to run a business. And my job that I have now actually takes me throughout the state, and it's got me to really love this beautiful place we live. And that's what I also want the world to know as well. So, and people that live in Michigan sometimes never get out and see the other parts. And I hope this book will make them, if they read it, want to get out there and see and experience this beautiful state that they live in and maybe don't know it yet.
I mean, that's a mic drop, Ed, because this is such a beautiful state to live in, and I hope folks give it more credit than they do. Ed McKenna is the author of the new book, The Grand Secret, which is out right now. Ed, thank you so much for joining us on The Metro.
Tia, I can't thank you enough for this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Bye-bye.
Is the Metro. And 2 years ago, WDET launched its annual listener survey. Your responses informed significant programming changes at WDET, and we've added several new programs, including the Metro. Your survey responses inform our programming directly. So let us know how we're doing. Head on over to WDET.org/survey. Coming up, the Me Too movement launched an international conversation about sexual abuse. But how far have we really come since then? We'll talk with a counselor on the matter. You all stay right there. We'll be right back. This is The Metro.